All right, we're live. Pardon the Dink show on 1/31/24 at 7:02 p.m. Pacific time. We are live with Clancy from AlphakRonic Genetics. How are you doing tonight?
I'm well, and yourself?
Doing good. Doing good.
Good.
It's kind of cool. Kind of was a nice warm day here in SoCal. Supposed to
Yeah,
get rain tomorrow.
yeah,
Supposed to get rain tomorrow, which everybody around here is bitching, and I'm like, yeah, we need more rain.
yeah. No, around here it's been raining. It'll rain through mid-June for us. Then it stops for a
Yeah,
little
it's
bit and
better.
starts in October.
Hey, rain is better than snow. You know.
That's true. We had an ice storm come through a couple of weeks ago and shut everything down, and like the whole city. Like I worked from home for a week and a half. That was kind of nice.
So,
Uh,
yeah, I guess we'll still go back to the beginning. So
yeah.
when was the when was your first introduction to cannabis? Did like your parents smoke, or did like where
Believe it
what
or
was your
not, my
first?
parents did not smoke. No, my parents weren't drinkers, weren't smokers, weren't partiers at all. I grew up in Boise, um, son of a
Mormon?
logger and long haul truck driver. Um,
It's Mormon land there.
yeah, it is. It's absolutely that. More Mormons in Boise per capita than Salt Lake. it's
Yeah,
it gets pretty intense over
absolutely.
there. Yeah, I'm
Not only
surprised.
that, they're more strict than the ones in Salt Lake.
Yeah, I'm surprised they don't have 3.2 beer there, the Mormon beer, as they call it, because in Salt Lake you can't get over 3.2. Um, but no, I grew up relatively, I would call it straight edge. Not necessarily in that mentality, just I just didn't partake. And then, turned about 16 and friend offered me a joint in school, and took it home. Me and my brother lit it up, fucking got blazed. And I think it started from right about there. Of course, in Boise, we weren't getting anything good. It's all, brick swag, bunch of seeds everywhere, but it still got you high, when you didn't have nothing. Um, it wasn't until
Right.
later that, in like 2021 that I, made enough connections that I had, was getting good organ bud that was getting brought over to Idaho. Um, yeah.
Oregon bud. You were getting Oregon bud when you were in Boise.
Yeah. Yeah. We had some people that would go over to Ontario and pick up and bring back. Yeah. It was a big
Did the
export.
bud have names at that point, or was it just like kind bud?
It's funny you mentioned that. My dealer and I actually had rounds about this. Every time I'd pick up, I'd be like, "So what kind of bud is it?" He's like, "It's just fucking weed, dude." He's like, "It just gets you high." He's like, "It doesn't matter what it's called." I'm like, "Dude, it does matter." I'm like, I'm gonna show you one day. I'm gonna make a strain. I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna get a cover on
Yeah,
High Time. I'm gonna prove it to you. And of course, he blew
yeah.
me off. Like, whatever, dude. Fuck you. You know what I mean? Just totally thinking I'm talking out of my ass. Eventually, flash forward a decade, I got one of the copies of when I had my first copy that I had a cover on. It's I autographed it to him on the inside cover and mailed it to him. And I signed it to him. See, it does matter. Sent it over to him to just to show him. And
I
him and I
mean, I
are
mean,
still.
we, I mean, we'd had names like going kind
Yeah.
of back, kind of far. I mean, like the
Oh
Skunk,
yeah,
the DJ Shark, Blueberry, you know. But yeah, a
absolutely.
lot. But if you weren't in one of those places, like if you weren't on the West Coast, you probably
Yeah.
didn't have names because that
Yeah.
what they
No.
call it, like brickweed was brickweed. They had
Yeah.
like they had some shit called Pretendo, which was like the better brickweed.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that.
A
But
pretender. We had plenty of that come through. And when I started getting better sacks, I'm sure I got blueberry come through because I had ones that I was tasting and I was like, fuck, this tastes like blueberry. You know what I mean? And that sort of thing. So
yeah,
I totally knew that, there was something to what I was getting, and I was kind of marking those different differentiations in my own mind. And then I moved over here into Portland in 2005 to attend culinary school. Um, and while I was there, I ended up getting my medical card when the law first passed in 2006. Um, for I have a multitude of reasons, but got my card. And honestly, my first grow, like many others, was a 400-watt high pressure sodium in a damn closet, just like everybody else. You know,
Yeah.
It wasn't until later when I met my partner that I started expanding on my knowledge, for one, my knowledge base, my educational base, that type of stuff, my volunteerism, and then eventually going professional or semi-professional in a sense. Uh, she has Crohn's disease, and her gastroenterologist was the person that recommended it to her. In fact, she was the first patient that our major hospital system here in the Portland area. She was the first patient that any of their doctors ever signed a medical cannabis card for or application for. So much so that the state sent the application back, said it was forged. They're like, yeah, this hospital doesn't sign these. And we're like, no, it does. And they verified, and they're like, damn, all right, cool. So, yeah, I got a card for her, and I started growing for her.
So
In
you're a
that,
caregiver, right?
yeah, exactly. I was a caregiver, and I was a caregiver for a couple of other people in that at that time. And basically, my arrangement with my patients was, let me know what you need. We'll have that all prearranged. I'll have that amount for you every month. Then in your overages will go to other patients who will reimburse me to cover your costs of your portion of the garden. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it was all indoor, so it was a lot of electricity and
Right. Yeah,
nutrients and everything else.
exactly. So my patients didn't have to owe me anything because whatever I grew that was extra that they didn't need would go to other patients who then reimbursed us for the cost of the garden. And that worked well for a long time. But I also started volunteering for a nonprofit group here in the state called Oregon Green Free. And they were kind of, at first, they were put together to kind of help pair patients with growers and growers with patients in order to get them, people partnered up that had gaps in their spaces, or people that had a need versus people that had ability to give forward. And in that time, I was learning more about growing and reading more and studying and everything else. I come from a background of gardening to a certain degree, and studied horticulture while I was in college, even though it wasn't a major. Um,
Were you reading like cannabis books or magazines, or like how were you getting this sort of
I
information?
was a lot of it was library books from like Portland State University here in downtown has quite a few books, but they're not necessarily. I wasn't reading I was reading on cannabis in cannabis magazines and that sort of thing, but I was reading books on other techniques and subjects like tissue culture and breeding mentality or techniques, and Mendelian breeding theory and that sort of thing.
Yeah, because
Things that I
a lot of people were a lot of people. I mean, not so much now, but in the medical days, a lot of people were very secretive. Like even like how they fed their plants or how they what their soil mix is. Like it was all secret sauce. And
yeah,
there's no reason for that, but a lot of people just have that mentality for some reason.
yeah, and there was that a bit, especially in back in the gray and black market days. Everybody had their own secret sauce. They wanted to be producers, and that was great. And then there was a green rush time happened where people were like, okay, well, I can take my blend and then sell it as a consultant to other farms, so that it becomes my IP at that point. And so, I mean, even some of the other breeders started making their own super soils and stuff. So selling those wholesale and retail. So, and that worked really well a long time also. But started, when I was doing the reading and stuff, I started growing, we started growing bigger plants, bigger garden, obviously having more patience. And speaking of the blueberry, we ended up getting a copy of the blueberry and grew it. And it worked really well for my ex-wife's Crohn's pain. But the problem is that she couldn't touch it. If it was alive and she touched it and brushed up against it, it would cause her to break out into hives and like blisters, turn all red and get itchy.
So did she smoke it or did she eat it or how
Yeah,
was
we
she?
smoked. Yeah, she smoked it. Once it was dried, it was fine. There was something though going on with the live plant that caused some sort of allergic reaction. Um, Never quite
Yeah,
figured
I
it
mean,
out.
I've actually, I've worked in the recreational, medical and recreational, and I've run across people that actually have that. They have to wear a super like long sleeve shirts and
Hmm.
gloves and everything
Yeah,
because they break out in hives, and I never really understood it. I just thought it was strange,
yeah.
but
No, it does happen. So that was what kind of led me down the path of looking into breeding. I decided I was going to try to do a back cross or do some sort of hybrid in order to try to create a genetic that would be equal to in medicinal efficiency, but without the allergic reaction portion of it. And so I started making seeds. Um, you know, made a couple batches. I At that time I was just giving them out to the patients and the growers that were in that medical nonprofit group that I was part of. Uh, just request all I was requesting was the analog data back. Like grow them out, let me know what you think. If they work for certain things, have your patients report what they find, send it back to me. That's all I
what was
wanted.
that original male?
I'm sorry.
What was the original male that you used?
It was a Durban poison male that I ended up had bought a couple of packs of seeds and did a selection on a Durban poison. Um, I ended up trading one of the really good females of that Durban poison pack for my very first clone only, which was the pre 98 Bubba Kush. There was a grower and hobbyist breeder here in the state that very good guy. Went to MIT, like very intelligent and knows what he's talking about. So that's where I got the pre 98. Was trading a Durban poison.
Yeah, the good thing about that Durban poison is that normally, well, most phenos have THCV in them,
Yeah, yeah,
which is
and-
I don't know if that got passed down to your progeny or not, but
yeah,
definitely one of the benefits of Durban poison for sure.
yeah. And I'll be honest, I didn't even sell any of those seeds. Those ones were all just given out. Just they were just projects. Just literally, there was no AlphaKronic at that point. I mean, that was my screen name, sure, but there was no AlphaKronic genetics. That was just something I was doing in my spare time. Um, Eventually I started making some other stuff. Like you said, earlier when we were off camera, I ended up getting, over time, just like any other grower, you make connections and you meet friends and you start trading cuts like you would baseball cards, and you end up with the things that you like most. And,
Mhm.
that was my goal. My goal was not to create end products that were going to create the exact same phenotype every time. That wasn't my goal. My goal was to be able to help people be able to make their own seeds. I wanted to offer raw genetics that had a little bit of phenotypic variance, so that people could pick and choose which traits they were trying to stabilize. Be able to pop seeds, find males, find females, find actual breeding stock if they wanted to. So much so that we started guaranteeing this eventually, so that people could find what they wanted, and let us know if they didn't, so we could help. um, but just trying to help them find true, help people have access to the cuts that people didn't have access to. um,
Yeah.
Especially for
Were you getting clones like from any dispensaries at that time, or was it mostly just
it was
other medical
all
patients you met?
yeah, medical patients, commercial growers, croppers, that sort of thing, guys that were already in the some guys that were in the medical scene mostly at that point. And that was about that time is when I found the Breed Bay website, and joined up there, because I found that that was where a lot of the cannabis breeding specific stuff was being centered at. um, Started posting pictures, making a profile, all that, how you did back in the day on websites and
Yeah.
forums. Met a bunch of people there. There was a bunch of growers that were there that I didn't know that were here in Oregon, Washington, California, and everything else. did quite a bit of trading, just making friends and that sort of thing. About that time, it was, I think there was a breeding company, and I apologize if I don't know if they're still around. Word had it that there was a guy named Breeder Steve from a company called Spice of Life Seeds.
Sacred Seeds.
Yeah.
It's a shishka berry.
Yeah, he had grabbed or had found a pack of my seeds, and at some point in time, popped them and gave me good reviews online on one of the web forums. And people started paying attention at that point. Started gifting out seeds. I wasn't really selling them at that point, just giving them out and sending them and trading them and bartering, basically the old school way, barters, this for that. And around that same time on Breed Bay, Subcool from TGA sent me a message and said, "Hey, you're local to me. Want to kick it? I hear good things about what you're doing. And let's hang out." And I did. So we got together, Jill and Subby and myself and my wife. We all went out and had pizza and beers, and got together, hung out. And they came over for my 30th birthday. My birthday's on New Year's Eve. I should probably preface with that. That's a little more fun than some, but
so you guys spent New Year's Eve together one year.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's dope.
Yeah, it was a good time. Yeah, we had a bunch of people there. It was a good time. The fun thing was that like all the people that were there weren't in the weed. Well, most people that were there weren't in the weed industry. So a lot of people had no clue about the people that were breeders and such that were there. They had nobody had any idea about these people. Like the weed that has come from the crew that was on one side of the house versus all the smokers on the other. It was pretty fun. But yeah, no, I ended up hanging out with Sub and talking a lot and sharing a bunch of shit. And
yeah, and he was a hash smoker, so he always had really good hash.
Yeah, no, that was one thing that we always had in common. We loved to make bubble, and he had a lot of good techniques that he passed down the road. And I adopted some of those. Had a couple of my own, little additives or things that I like to do myself. But yeah, we always loved to get together at a park. And, he used to have a yearly barbecue as well, once a year, close to where he lived. And everybody get together and share bubbles and fucking buds and stories and everything else. That's where I met Dioxide and, a few of the other old TGA crew that used to help him out with
Sunny.
Yeah. Exactly. So, met a lot of people through that connection. And I was working in that time. I was just out of culinary school, working. I had worked at the Rose Garden as a private chef for made the players team, the basketball teams, both the play away and home, and the players' wives and kids. I made all their food and the referees and shit. So that was fun. But I was working that summer. I was working at a golf course at a private country club, and I was working the hotline just random afternoon, and I get a phone call, and it's Subby, and I'm like, "Well, fuck, okay, I'll walk off the line and take this call." And he's on speakerphone, and he's like, "Hey, bud, I'm sitting here with Ed, which is Ed Rosenthal," and he's like, "We're arguing over the definition of phenotype." He's like, "What's your answer?" I gave him my answer, whatever it was at that point.
Yeah.
He's like, "I see, Ed, I told you so." And he's like, "All right, buddy, I thank you." Because he had this thick Southern accent.
Yeah.
I hung up the call. I went back to work. About an hour later, I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, if those two guys are calling me for my opinion, maybe I need to take it up a notch. Maybe I need to get on this and go professional or do something with it. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what I did. I decided to, start breeding, in a more professional mindset, doing more rigorous testing, offering different types of genetics, and just going from there.
Was that were you still using that Durban poison, or did you switch?
Oh no, the Durban poison was just for some learning
stuff.
Yeah, just testing. learning how to do it. Basically, at that point, I was working with a space dog. I had given a cut of the snow dog to Subby, cross with the tiny bomb to make space dog, and then he gave me a bunch of the seeds back, and a bunch of other stuff as well. And so, my original seed stock was originally Space Queen. It was a male I was using, and a space dog male is what I was using as well. And then so on and so forth. I went to a Sin City Kush male. That was kind of what I really liked at that point in time. It was funny. He would famously tell everybody, he's like, I fucking can't stand Kushes. He's like, they don't like. He's like, I like to get high, not stoned. I'm like, all right, but Jill loved Kushes, so I ended up giving him the pre 98 because that was her personal stock. That was her favorite thing to smoke.
Yeah, I used to remember he used to always say she liked Tiny Bomb as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that was a good cut.
Yeah, before you go too far, we need to clarify that that's your what was it? Your damn it, your mail you just mentioned was something that you made. It wasn't Sin City Kush from Sin City Seeds. It's a creation that you created.
Yeah, no, Sin City Kush, I think I developed that in 2008 or 2009 originally. And I've talked to the guys over at Sin City Seeds, and we're definitely cool. There's no
he's good. He's a good dude.
We're good. There's no people. I don't think there's anybody like confusing us. So there's definite product differentiation. But it was a male that we came out with and a strain that we came out with just prior to them being public as a company. With their name. And again, we've been friendly at all the shows and everything else. So, it was just a male based on the Las Vegas Purple Kush.
I'm gonna show that real quick.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Where heck Sin City Kush? Oh, I gotta go. Okay. So basically we got pretty plant. Oh, they got a tiny picture, of course. But yeah, let's see here. So you got Las Vegas Purple Kush is the female, Snow Dog is the BX is the male.
Yeah.
And see the BX part was what do you got here? You got you crossed Snow Dog back into Snow Dog.
Yeah. Let me see. I don't know. Can we share my screen? Is there ability?
Yeah, you could do you should have a icon down there that says present.
Okay.
And then once you click on the present, you have an option to share your screen, and then you can do a tab or your whole screen or whichever you like there.
Sorry, I had not used this streaming platform prior to just tonight. Let me see here. We're going to go to Google Photos.
Yeah, I'm going to switch to Zoom pretty soon, but
okay.
Let's see. Add to stage.
So that would be, this was the photo we used for the data card, which when we first started, we would print up 3x5 cards that had this picture and then all the data about the grow and the plant on the backside, all the information, flowering times and such. Are you able to see what I'm trying to show? Just want to make sure.
Yeah, I see it.
And then, of course, if you want some data on it, if anybody is looking for that. This was what.
Are you able to blow that up a little bit or zoom into the text?
Yeah, absolutely. Oops.
You could just make it a touch bigger. There we go.
That good?
Yeah,
so
now
that
I can see it.
Sin City 2 Kush, or Sin City Kush 2 was we went on the back cross side, so we went backwards a little bit.
Backcross Sin City Kush 2 is backcross AlphaKronic genes, 2 favorite plants from the Sin City Kush hybrid mix to create an inbred line that serves up huge yields of sugary frosted cover colas and compact indica leading package. Selected for a trichome coverage, the Sin City Kush Mom is this hybrid that was pollinated by the dad, selected from a coloration, aroma, structure, and mold resistance. The result in the line can grow just about at any latitude in just about any garden. This plant doesn't take much effort or skill to grow and is perfect for beginners. Sensei Kush has been tested to show and work well in treatment of side effects from wasting from cancer, AIDS, nausea, pain, migraines, lupus, and other autoimmune disorders.
Correct.
Yeah, sounds like a winner.
Yeah, it worked out well. And like, again, all of those that that information at the bottom talking about the treatment, what we found that worked for side effects. It doesn't cure anything. Weed never has. Let's be honest. Like, it doesn't cure anything, but
it helps make life a little bit more enjoyable.
Right. So it definitely makes life a little bit easier for people, and helps people keep down medications and that sort of thing. So all of that type of data was what I was getting from the medical growers in the state of Oregon. In fact, I started sending out seeds throughout the nation to different medical growers in different states and using that data as well at that point. Let me take a look here, see if we have any more pictures. I got lots. So this was one that came up afterwards. This was the pre-98 Bubba crossed with that Sin City Kush, and we called it American Kush. This one was a little bit different, but it was a heavier on trichome, more cushy flavored, a little bit more lavender in flavor. In fact, it was.
Did you get any chocolate out of it at all?
No, I'll be honest. Neither of the pre-98 that I had or the Las Vegas had that chocolate. The pre-98 I had was that golf ball, very almost coffee. It was like a coffee flavor, and then the Las Vegas had like a lavender kind of a floral.
Floral.
Yeah, it tasted purple.
Did it have real wide leaves, really short?
Yeah, exactly. It was really short, really bushy, 9 inches across on fan leaves. It was pretty big. Yeah.
I had a pre-98. I grew 2 different versions back, I don't know, a long time ago, 15 years ago. I had one cut that was floating around Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
It was more of that coffee flavor you're talking about.
Yeah.
And then I had a version that I bought in Los Angeles in like 2016.
Okay.
And that one actually had like some chocolate notes to it. And I don't know if it was the pure thing or not. It was sold as pre-98 Bubba, but you never know. When you buy a clone, it's like, I always say clones are like hookers, like
that's
you
true.
never know what you're going to get. A lot of times you get bugs and other problems, but sometimes you get you can cure it and have a nice clone, get rid of the bugs, get rid of the problems. Just hope it doesn't have, fucking hop latent or powdered mildew. Of course, we didn't know about hop latent back then, but we did know about powdered mildew, and that was common in the clone game.
Yeah, that's true.
People spray their shit with Avid or some bullshit, and you wouldn't know about these problems until a few weeks later after you've already bought it, got it growing, and it infected everything else in your room.
That's true. I mean, a lot of us even had like a spare tent that was just for like bringing new clones in and just making sure
I did too.
It's like an ICU.
I did that too. I had a 4x4 that was for incoming. It didn't matter if I got it from like somebody I know really well, because you never know. I mean, people maybe it didn't pop up in their environment,
It's the way it works. I remember for a few years, there was even batches of soil that weren't getting steamed hot enough. And, people would buy a certain brand of soil and go home and plant everything. And then as soon as the bugs got warmed up enough and the eggs hatched, bugs came out. There was problems back in the day with inconsistency within the industry. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Including the clones.
It wasn't really a mature industry at that point. It was just kind of like just coming out of the closet, and knowledge wasn't shared freely really with anybody. Guys like Bob Clark or Dick Clark, Robert Clark, whatever you want to call him, and Rosenthal, and those books, Cervantes, all those books are great, but they only experience has a lot to do with it. I mean, those books can only do so much. Experience is where you really learn all the little nuances to, like, how to identify something well before,
right,
and how to manage and deal with it. The book is more like reference material at that point.
Absolutely. It is. It's a good starting point. It's like a building block. You know, every garden is different. Every garden has to be dialed in individually. They're all different. They hold different moisture contents. They have different airflow. They have different heat
Yeah,
properties.
it's just like you know, you could have a plant that's the exact same genotype. Bring it
Hmm.
from your house, bring it to my house, bring it to five other people's houses,
Hmm.
and the pheno expression is going to be slightly different because of different pressures and different things that are in those rooms. You
Yep.
know,
Yep.
and
Exactly. So
elevation even plays a factor. Everything plays a factor.
you know, there's a big thing that, you know, in the winery scene, they call it terroir. It's like the flavor of the
Yeah, after a
environment.
while, yeah,
You know, Florida weed doesn't taste like New York weed. It doesn't taste like Oregon weed. It doesn't taste like California weed. You know what I mean? It's all different. Every
yeah.
state's going to have their own little flavor, their own little nuances, all with
Which
the
is why,
same.
right there, you touched on something that I thought like we need interstate commerce between legal states
Yeah.
because stuff that's in California, people would love to have California weed in other places because to replicate SoCal, it's impossible. You know, replicate Oregon, it's impossible, right? So like the stuff that's growing in your terroir, or your area, like yeah, it has that nuance of there, you know,
Yeah.
and you know, it's not that like I'm not saying that one is better than the other, but sometimes it's nice to have, you know, something from somewhere else, right? Like there's a reason people buy French bottles of wine.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, it's latitude, longitude, you know, the soil content, you know, the around the Northwest, we have very volcanic soil. I mean, I live in the valley of three volcanoes. You know, we've had explosions for millennia. So you know, the Willamette Valley where I live has phenomenal soil. That's why we have all the wineries here, and all, you know, tons of other farms for that matter. But you know, you just can't. It's hard to replicate the moisture content in the air, and like you said, you know, the different nuances of each individual place, you know, how much sun and how strong that sun is and everything else. You know, different plants like different setups, so to say.
Yeah. So anyway, back to what we were talking about. So you got the
Yeah.
Heisenberg Bush, Blue Dream, to Sin City.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of outdoor
You have
growth,
did you have the Santa Cruz cut?
of the Blue Dream, yeah, yeah. I ended up getting it from a fella in Colorado who had brought it over for a commercial crop, and did some breeding for it. Um, Produced something I thought was good, for the fact being I was able to add botrytis resistance to it. That was what made it good. It was a yielder similar to what Blue Dream was, had more of a cushy flavor, but then we were able to add that botrytis protection for the outdoor growers here in Oregon, because Blue Dream is notorious for easily molding.
Yeah,
So people
you guys have quite the let's just call it moisture. A lot of liquid
right.
sunshine. And
That's the
then
truth.
what you'll have what if you're doing outdoor, what you got about to the second, third week of September, and then it starts getting
Yeah, that's when you want to put your hoop houses up. Yeah, it starts getting moist, but then about the beginning of October is when it starts pouring. It doesn't stop until again in June, so to say. It just kind of rainy the whole year, 9 months of the year. I like to tell people we get twice as much rain on an average year than they did in the Great Biblical Flood. We get like 80 days a year. They only had 40.
you know, people don't realize it, but it actually rains more in Oregon than it does in Washington.
It does. And you know, most people don't recognize the fact that Oregon is what they call a incremental rainforest, meaning that we have
Yeah.
all 4 seasons. So it's not tropical, but we're a rainforest. It's not like, you know, we don't have toucans and stuff flying around.
Yeah. They have a rainforest also in Washington.
Yep,
Um
absolutely. The whole
and
Northwest.
yeah, Northwest is kind of unique in that aspect. There's nowhere else in North America I don't think has that. Maybe British Columbia, but I'm not aware.
Oh yeah, they definitely have that type of regional weather patterns and stuff. I mean, it's all the places up here. Basically, it's almost all the way up to Alaska. Alaska is a little colder, But any of these places that pine and timber is the main export, that's the reason why. It's because of all that good moisture and the good soil that's around here. I live probably about 30, maybe 25 minutes away from where they filmed what is it called, Axemen for Discovery Channel.
Oh yeah,
show about logging.
Yeah.
It's just down the highway from me. I actually have to drive past the plots in order to get to my disc golf course. So
Yeah.
it's
familiar with that.
a little different out here. That was one of the things, when I decided to, here a few years ago, take a little hiatus, I just spent time going outdoors and fishing again and getting back into who I was again. That was kind of nice. So, but yeah, no, I mean, generally speaking, we bred a bunch of seeds, started a website. Eventually, the first seed bank to get a hold of us to want to carry our seeds was Attitude. It was
those are the big boys. Those are the big boys, man. They're the ones that I don't want to say they're first in the game, because they definitely weren't first, but they were definitely the big boys, and they were the guys that had the balls to advertise. And a lot of us did that. We do the bank. You got to do the bank transfer to get to buy the stuff from them, and then you'd hope it appeared. And I bought quite a bit of stuff from them.
Yeah. No, I mean, it was what it was, and they did their thing. We wouldn't have been able to do what we did without them, I'll be honest. So I'm very thankful for what the team over at Attitude did for us. And we had, that was kind of what put us on the board in that sense. Rumor had it, or I was told by some people at the High Times crew, that Bobby Black had received 10 packs of one of our strains, and Ed Rosenthal had gotten 10 packs on the West Coast. Basically, we had sent some in for them to just fuck around with and test, and that ended up getting us known on those different coasts with different publishers. Ended up meeting Jack from Green Candy Press. Started submitting photos and write-ups to him. And started trying to just basically promoting myself, not in a rah, look at me sense, but writing articles that were based around, the industry, things that were going on, different hypotheses that I was having at that time regarding what I was finding in breeding. There was a time in Skunk magazine that I wrote a multi-part article that covered several months that was based on finding that my question in my mind was, why does cannabis have trichomes? And other plants have lots of other plants have trichomes. Drosera plants have trichomes. But what we find in nature is that trichomes are usually attached to carnivorous plants. Trichomes trap the prey, the leaf rolls up, processes the prey, and then it rolled back open. So I started looking into it and came to find out that there is a whole classification of plants called protocarnivorous, meaning that they're moving away from or towards carnivory, but they're right in that transition stage. So they can trap prey, but they can't process it. They rely on a symbiotic relationship with the soil to be able to break that prey down into nutrients. So they basically
essentially they catch it with their sticky trichomes.
Yeah, exactly. So
trichomes it falls.
Yeah. So it's, as it's the hairs that catch pollen, pull it into a calyx, create a seed, and pops out a seed. For a long time, people will misnomer, thinking that keef was pollen. We had your shaker box back in the 90s. You're catching your pollen, bro. That just is what it was.
I think there was even a product called the pollen extractor that was for catching keef.
It was Mila. Mila did it from Amsterdam, if I remember correctly. But long story short, I started looking into why trichomes were there. Figured out, I hypothesized that cannabis is a protocarnivorous plant. It's moving one way or the other. I'll join you, buddy. Got me some Irish whiskey here. But yeah, wrote up an article talking about why, cannabis originally, basically evolved from Southeast Asia throughout the world, generally speaking, from what at that time the science was pointing towards, from what I could find. In Southeast Asia, they don't have a lot of livestock. The soil is good, but it's not super fertile. Okay. So cannabis,
They don't crop rotate either.
kind of had to find its own. Exactly. And so I started wondering, my favorite types of cannabis, or weed, or whatever you want to call it, are the stinky shit. Like I love fruity weed, I love peppery weed, I like piney weed. It's all good. But what I'm drawn to is the gas. I like the gas. I like skunk. I like, the shit smell. I like the cat piss. I like the stinky stuff.
I'm with you right there, 100%.
We have a terpene wheel, but guess what? None of those flavors are included in that terpene wheel.
Yeah.
It's because those flavors, when I was doing reading, and like I said, Portland State University, reading at the collegiate, library, was that there are 3,500 species of plant in this world that contain a secondary flavonoid, other than esters, but flavonoid called a thiol. And a thiol is a carbon chain with a sulfur atom at the end. And it's what creates all the smells, the stinky shit in nature. So garlic, onion, skunk, gas, feces, vomit, all the stinky stuff. That's what in science, they call them mercaptans. And that's what they call it in like the scientific lab version. And so they'll take mercaptans and put them in odorless gases, such as natural gas, to make them smell like rotten eggs. That's one version of a thiol. There's a lot of thiols. There's like 52 of them. My hypothesis was cannabis evolved that smell in order to attract prey to trap. And in 2020 or 2021, there was an Israeli team, and this was after I took my break, but I was keeping up on a little bit of science. An Israeli team of scientists finally had the sulfur sniffer, which is an attachment you would put on the column graph test. And so you basically put the column, or you put the sniffer on, and then you would run the HLPC, and you would create this column that would identify which different sulfur-based atoms are in that vapor that the machine makes. It's a $500,000 attachment. So I wasn't able to ever find funding in order to get that taken care of with a local analytical testing group. But this
I ran one of those machines in the last job I had in the lab, but we were only looking for certain cannabinoids.
Exactly. And so there's this whole other grouping of flavonoids I was hypothesizing, and then this Israeli team went out and ran the test, and sure enough, validated my theories. I was very proud at that point.
So phenols, you're saying, is there any other psychoactive plants that contain those?
Oh yeah. Well, psychoactive, having thiols, in small amounts. Here's the thing: even in cannabis, you're talking 0.25% of the total plant. It's a tiny amount, and that's why plants, when they're growing, is even stinkier, is because they oxidize extremely quickly and they vaporize very quickly. That's why live resin will have a completely different flavor profile than cured resin. It's because those thiols are there versus they're not being there. Of course, terpenes will oxidize as well and change flavors and everything else. But if you really want that OG, like that straight gas, that's why live resin's the spot to go, because it's like taking all of those other terpenes.
You're taking it in that fresh state, before it has time to oxidize.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
With flower, also, a lot of people don't cure properly, in my opinion. Like when they're, back in the day, like we all cured in, mason jars. Some of us would use turkey bags, right? But with the thing with the mason jars, like if you open it too many times, like basically, like the way I like to think of it is like there's like a gas that builds up inside the jar.
Yeah.
And when you open it up, you're releasing some of that. And if you open it up too much, if you burp it too often, then after a certain maybe 7, 8, 10 days, it's not going to generate anymore.
Yeah.
And then your bud goes from curing to aging. You're no longer curing, you're aging, right?
Yeah.
But if you trap those gases in there and you have that long cure, I think the bud comes out a lot better in the long run. And
if you give me just like a second, I'm gonna grab some bud out of that room over there that I cured for about 6 months, almost 9 months actually. It was just over 6 months, but it's been aging for 5 years that I still have, that I've been holding on to. It was my last harvest of Snow Dog.
Oh, nice. Yeah, we'll
wait till you see it. You wait till you see how different it looks. And all of the super duper flavonoids have gone away. It has this unique, musky, like incensey smell. It's unlike anything. It was a project I wanted to try. I'd never cured an aged weed like real long term. I'm talking like in the dark, in a cabinet, long periods of time. Hold on one second.
And not exposed to heat.
And not exposed to heat. That's correct. Keeping it at a 7-degree temperature.
Thanks everybody for showing up tonight and watching this episode of Pardon the Dank.
All right. Yeah. Oops.
And he's back like a flash. Here, I'll spotlight you.
All right. I don't know if we're going to have a lot of good light here. But the bud has turned red. Like,
we need one more shot.
Really super duper red over time. It still smokes like a champ. I mean, I gave it to a buddy and
still squeeze it and it's still good.
Oh yeah, no, I've been keeping it moist. No, it's it's
I missed that about the Northwest so much. You put weed out here for 15-20 minutes, you could squeeze it and it just turns into fucking powder.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking like 30% humidity out here in the desert.
That's the truth. It's unlike Florida where you can just buy a sack and then it molds 2 days later.
Well, that's terrible too.
I went down there like a couple of months ago. I went down there in November and was just walking around down in Icon Park and walked up to some little head shop and they fucking had tons of weed there. I was like, what the fuck? I hadn't been down to Florida in a long ass time, so I was like, okay, I gotta buy some weed. Because if you're in Florida and they got weed for sale, might as well buy some.
It's been like 35 years since I went to Florida.
Yeah, I had to go.
I was a kid.
I work in the coffee industry as a day job thing. My adult job. So we were down there for a coffee convention of all things. I like to work with beans. What can I say?
Yeah.
But yeah, so
anyway, yeah, you went into, where'd you go? You go into a dispensary down there or something? Or
no, it wasn't even a dispensary. It was literally just a head shop next to my hotel. I'm walking around. I walked over and grabbed a beer somewhere. I'm walking past. I'm like, oh, it's a head shop. I'll just walk in and see what they got. And they had dab cards. They had weed. They had everything there. So I was like, shit, when in Rome, you might as well try it. I'd feel bad if you didn't try the Florida weed. I'll be honest, it wasn't too bad. I rolled a couple of joints, smoked one on the way to the airport, smoked one at the airport on the way out. And it was good, believe it or not, for being like what I would imagine that they're cropping out, and testing when it's Delta 8 and then selling it at Delta 9 was what I would imagine, because it did seem to be a more bodega type head shop, not super reputable, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, there's that fine line of selling the Delta 8 and the THCO and THCP and some of
that's what I'm finding out.
That's Delta 10, which is like a lab creation, I guess.
Yeah, honestly, I had a buddy who was a lab guy, like in 2008 or 2009, actually makes some Delta Delta 10 back in the day and didn't know what to do with it really. It wasn't like a thing. Nobody really cared about it. And then basically I took off around COVID. I kind of had a burnout period and decided I was going to take some time to myself and raise my daughter, and went through divorce and all that stuff. So took a hiatus for about 5 years. Now I'm coming back, and all these different molecules and are being played with, and I'm going to catch back a little bit. Mission's still the same, don't get me wrong, but learning, if you're not learning, you're dying. It's the way I see it.
Yeah, well, you should be learning every day, even
Exactly.
Once you think you know it all, that's when you don't know shit.
That's the truth. That's the truth.
I mean, we're all learning.
Yeah,
shit.
no, I just took a step back from the breeding, decided to go do some consulting, different places. Did a lot of consulting out in Pennsylvania, Connecticut, different places over on the East Coast for farmers that were switching over from tobacco into hemp. So I helped them get up and running and learn the ropes. It was kind of fun.
Do you, when you're teaching those guys, or even for your own personal, and when you're breeding, were you using a fertilizer, like a bottled fertilizer, or were you using a soil blend, or what were you? What were you doing?
No, it was I was using a fertilizer. I was using a 1-part that eventually went to a 2-part product by House and Garden. Give me 1 second. All right. So I liked House and Garden quite a bit. They had an organic base. Originally, when I first started growing, I used BioBiz, which was an organic derived.
I know BioBiz well.
Yeah, exactly. So I started with BioBiz, and if you probably know, William Van de Zwaan went and formulated that for BioBiz, and then there was some sort of, at least in the industry, there was rumors that there was some sort of like bad blood. He went, and started his own company, House and Garden, and they had a 1-part very similar to BioBiz, and I used that because I always used 55-gallon mixed tanks.
House and Garden are the guys with the shooting powder.
Yep, they do have shooting powder. I'll be honest, okay. I didn't use all of their salts.
Yeah, I did one run with their stuff. I was at a trade show, and they gave me like I think there were 5-gallon jugs. They gave me a bunch of it.
Yeah,
and I did a run with it. It was good. It's not bad.
Yeah. But originally, I had their 1-part, their Bio 1 is what they called it, and I would just add it to my tea brewer, and then add compost and fish guts, all the good stuff. What was the there is a additive, and I am blanking on the name, but it smells like absolute just sulfur and rotten eggs. I used to use a lot of that as well.
They're the ones that did the was it accelerator? No, what was it called? It came in a big aluminum bottle, and it was really expensive.
Yeah, they did that. That was them. And I did learn that. That was good stuff. Believe it or not, that was amino acids and different micros, basically. You only had to use like 2 milliliters per gallon too. It was like super concentrated.
Roots Accelerator, I think. It's been a long time. Yeah. A long time since I used that.
In fact, I still think I have a few cases of their product in my storage, even though I don't have a garden at the moment. Did hold on to a bunch of the stuff. I probably expired by now. I probably all the salts have collected and dropped.
But even dead microbes are still useful.
Yeah, and now that I'm, I reactivated everything and started making, kind of poking my head back out. I've been talking to a few friends, and I'm like, dude, the nutrient game changed, bro. It's all this brand and this brand, and I'm like, okay, well, I guess I got to learn,
Dina now, which is salt based.
And I was never against salts. Don't get me wrong. I was one of those people like, if you can do it and well with organics and make it cost effective, as long as the end product is proper, you're fine.
Yeah, the only problem with the salt thing I have is that if you're using cannabis for recreational purposes, the salts are fine.
Yeah.
But if you're using cannabis for medicinal purposes, keep in mind that you're using calcium nitrate and monopotassium phosphate, and these could be byproducts of gasoline petroleum industry. And that might not be if you're severely sick, that might not be something that you want in your cannabis.
Oh yeah, yeah. And so what I did is I used an organic base nutrient as my base. My AB or whatever you want to call it was one part at that point, and then I would supplement with certain little things. I used a lot of great white beneficials. I like to see like live.
Great white, great, yeah, it's that's great white mycorrhiza. It's good mycorrhiza.
Yep. I used a lot of kashi product, a lot of just anything that would help create a good soil, because a lot of growers think that they're feeding a plant. You're not.
You're feeding the soil web, soil food
exactly.
web. Yeah.
Plant doesn't take anything. Anything you give it to that plant has to be broken down first. And if you don't have the proper microbes and bacterium in that soil, you're never going to get the full spectrum of nutrients. So you're never going to get a full spectrum of plant or flavor.
The way I explain salts is that there's basically like an IV, right? You get everything that's in that IV bag. And the plant, everything is taken up by osmotic pressure. So it's pushed, essentially pushed into the cell walls, right?
Yeah.
Is where with organic, it's like that the microbes have to break the stuff down, and it's going to pick and choose what it wants.
Yeah.
It's not forced in by osmotic pressure, right? So I think it's a better way of going. However, people are going for maximum yield versus quality, and I'm always been a quality over quantity.
Personally, when I grow, that's the way I grow when I grow for myself. It's all about flavor. I don't care about the yield either. I mean, granted, if a plant isn't a decent yielder, I'm likely not going to grow it. I ran through Girl Scout cookies a couple of times, and I was like, the juice ain't worth the squeeze here. When you think about it, the costs to grow that plant are exactly the same as any other plant. You're just not getting as much output. So, it costs a lot more to grow that plant in general, but yeah, finding, that sweet balance, was finding the good croppers that would create a good cola. And that was where a lot of that OG stuff that we were talking about, like, the Larry and, the true OG and all the older stuff, they had good colas on them. They would yield well, but they also had the funk. And that was where it made them so popular.
Yeah. A lot of OGs are stretchy too. And, you can train the plants. I don't know if you ever use the FIM process, the FIM, where you basically cut the little tops of the hair and make four nodes come out instead of two, and you can create more tops. And
I lollipop too, so I would do.
Yeah, I always lollipop too.
I do the whole works. Yeah, I create a whole canopy basically.
Exactly. I mean, and you can also mainline it if get it when it's a small clone, mainline it over, and then do the FIM process until you get the amount of tops you want. But that all takes time, and a lot of people that are in a rush these days. But when it's for yourself, you don't mind taking the extra time to get what you want.
Right. It makes it so much nicer to be able to take your time, just kind of have a passion project with it. Go in there and prune them and pluck them and prod them every day, as so many of us have to do. Got to go in there and check and look at everything. Oh, at least I am. I get nerdy with the shit. So
yeah, I get nerdy with it too. And back in the day, like we'd hear of guys like Ed Rosenthal, where if you told him you were leaf stripping, you'd be like, why are you taking the solar panels off your plant? Right.
Yeah.
Same time, it's like, you got three Alight out there in Colorado that came out with their book many years ago at this point.
Yeah.
And they're talking about, doing 3 leaf strips, in the first 21 days or so, first 25 days, maybe. And I kind of, at first I was kind of hesitant, but then, I did it. Like I basically did it like do like a leaf strip like about 2 to 3 days before I flip, and
Hmm.
then I do another one about day 10, and
Yeah.
then in a early 20s between day 21 25, and I strip about 80% of the leaves. But you know what? It gets more light into the plant, and I get great yields. And 3 days prior and 3 days after, so basically 6 days. Every time I do a leaf strip, I'm feeding vitamins, B vitamins, so
Yeah.
it helps plants not stress out too much because I don't, But I don't do that on breeding plants. On breeding plants, I don't want to stress them at all.
Yeah.
But stuff that's for smoke, yeah, that's definitely I definitely do a leaf strip.
Yeah, I do leaf strip. I use B12 as well. A lot of silica. I used to use a lot of silica products in
Yeah,
order to.
silica and aminos and microbes I go
Yeah,
crazy with.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Um, there were products I tested out that I really loved that by the time I left, they hadn't quite come to the market yet. So I don't have a name to drop on them, unfortunately. A lot of the guys that were, getting going at the beginning of the green rush, so to say, that like, hey, go test this product. Let us know what you think. I'm like, oh, fuck it.
Yeah, enzymes too is another part. You gotta use enzymes as
Oh yeah,
well.
I use a lot of that. Oh, definitely.
I
Yeah,
used to
anything.
use hydrozyme, but then I used hydrozyme for a long time, and then
That's the one I was thinking of that smells like rotten eggs. That I was
yeah,
mentioning earlier.
hydrozyme.
Hydrozyme. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I switched to raw NPK. They're a
Okay.
good enzyme. That's their enzyme and their aminos are just really clean. That's why I use them.
Mm,
It's no
yeah.
additive, nothing. And then a little bit goes so far.
Right.
Um, raw makes I
Yeah.
don't know, raw NPK raw, whatever the hell their name is. They make great stuff.
Yeah. I mean, there were, like I said, I didn't overdo it with my plants. I used mostly an organic base that was very, very wide spectrum, so to say. But I also added things like humic acids and fulvic.
Yeah,
uh,
humics and fulvics are very important.
Yeah, super important stuff. Keeping the roots healthy and such. But yeah, just keeping that. Like I said, I was more focused on the soil. When you're seeing a problem with the plant, that means the problem started a week and a half ago. It's like a flu. But
Or more. Yeah, or more.
you can try to correct course, but you're not gonna make that plant make that leaf look better. It's just is what it is. I hope better next time. That sort of thing. So, but you can definitely correct course, but you're not gonna
Yeah, and
same.
that's also one of the things with like hydroponics where you could see results like almost instantaneous within the same day or two.
Yeah,
If you corrected something, but
exactly.
your weed also has a cardboard terp. So
Yeah, that
I mean, I'm not saying you can't get terps out of hydro, but it's not the same as organically soil grown stuff.
yeah, yeah, no, and I'll be honest, even when I eventually did move to salts, an AB type product, I found one of the keys for me to be able to keep really good flavor in my plants was the carbohydrate additives. And for
Mhm.
me, it was blackstrap molasses. I did, I
Yeah,
think, five milliliters per gallon brewed in a tea brewer, making it bioactive as much as possible. Fed it directly to the plants, and they love that shit. Adding
yeah.
sugars to the plants is what gives them
Well,
energy.
you got the building blocks there. You got magnesium and sulfur, so it's
Yeah,
kind of your building blocks in the sulfur and the molasses.
exactly.
Um, and yeah, I definitely use that. I also use a product called Sucronaut, which is basically like a dehydrated molasses.
Yeah.
Um, Works really well. You don't have to use very much of it.
Hmm.
Um, Experiment with some other like palm sugars and some other things, but they just didn't work as well as the blackstrap molasses.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know,
Nope.
and
And
another thing too, is you like raising the bricks count. Like not only is it good for flavor and everything, but also like bugs don't want to attack a high bricks plant.
yeah,
You
no, I get
they
that for
stay
sure.
away from it. You know.
Yep, that's true. But yeah, no, it's been fun. I'm coming back slowly, uh, plotting my next move, so to say, at the moment. Um, Probably going to be starting a new plot, new spot, probably in the June or July area. Kind of planning it out right now and getting reacquainted and reconnected with people that I knew before, and getting back into the swing of things again. Blow it back up hopefully pretty soon. I don't know what kind of breeding projects I'm going to be starting. I don't know if I'm going to. I don't know what I'm going to do. I might try something completely different. We'll see what happens.
I definitely think you should start breeding again. Obviously you're going to be hunting. Industry. Just you got a lot of classic stuff in your library, and the classics never die. Um, so I wouldn't necessarily. I wouldn't abandon those things. I would.
Yeah.
Maybe you do go a new way and you find a modern hybrid or something, but to build to or from or whatever. But I would introduce your classics to it because a lot of the stuff we're talking about, those OGs, the old Kim Dog, Kim D, Kim 4, your Snow Dog. I mean, those things those things are legendary at this point.
Well, fortunately, I was able to hold on. I quite a bit. I have all my cuts still, available to me. I can go grab those whenever. I was able to secure all of those, but I still have hacks like Las Vegas Purple Kush BX.
Oh, nice.
I still have a few of my original Leica seeds, some of my old Space Queen stuff. Got bandana. Well, like I kept a pack at least of everything. Original cheddar worst.
Oh, that's the first one. The first one you did.
Cheddar head. This was something that somebody requested the other day, and I didn't know I even had it. Still have quick case of Fuertes, Belka, and of course a big breeder pack of Snow Dog too, so that I can hit that Snow Dog cross again and get back to where I need to be. You know what I mean?
So did you ever trade cuts then? I guess you did. You said you did trade cuts with Subcool.
Oh yeah, we traded cuts quite a bit. Had the Tiny Bomb, had Romulan, had Space Queen Cherry. I'll be honest, I wasn't a fan of the Cherry. That was my just preference, completely subjective thing. It wasn't a bad plan or nothing, just subjective flavor thing. Agent Orange, I grew that for a little bit.
Yeah,
I really like that one. Granted, I wasn't breeding with his stuff. That wasn't my goal. My goal was, he's got his stuff. I was just growing it for fun, just growing it for myself. And that way he also had, and back in the day, we all gave cuts out so that we would know where our cuts were so that we could get them back in case anything, like you said, botrytis, bugs, whatever came on our plots. Be able to get your genetics back, so to say. So I kept a lot of stuff of his. I don't have any of it anymore, I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
The one I think I really wish I had was that Jilly Bean. I still miss that one. And the Tiny Bomb. The Tiny Bomb was something special. It wasn't
Yeah, I had the tiny bomb, but that was like 2012, somewhere in there. I kept that around until about 15.
Yeah.
And I should have kept it longer, but I didn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had quite a bit of his original library at that point.
Yeah. I still actually have some of his seeds laying around here somewhere. Some of the old school stuff too that other people did for it too, like Donkey Dick and some of the really, really old school stuff from the beginning of TGA days when it was more of a crew than just sub cool.
Yeah, his original one I think was like Conquistador. He had this one strain that had like a Taco Fino. I don't know if you remember that.
Yep.
Yeah, he had some interesting stuff when he first started. I don't know if he was just I don't know. I don't know if it was TGA yet at that point. It might have
Yeah.
been, because he was the Green Avenger on the thing, on the boards, on the forums.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
which is kind of crazy that like the Green Avenger became the name of his brand, TGA, and then the moniker Subcool. Then he kind of dropped the Green Avenger as being his name,
Right.
and then adopted the Subcool name.
Yeah.
Which is
Well, I know
that's
he's missed
crazy.
by a lot of people, like that's for sure. He was quite a character. A
Yeah,
lot of
Monty was
personality. I will leave it at
definitely.
that.
Monty had like a rock star presence when he would come into a room. When you're around him, like he was definitely like a rock star. Like it's just something about him. Like he had this type of energy where no matter who you want to listen to him. He had cool stories. He had a good way of telling stories.
Yeah, that's for sure. No, he was a blast to be around. It was funny. If you were one-on-one with Monty, he was Monty. But as soon as like 2 or 3 other people showed up, he became Subcool.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Like it clicked, and then he became Subcool all of a sudden. It was funny. It was good.
Yeah.
That was just who he was.
But Pam, or Jill, I guess you call her Jill, she has her own thing now, Miss Jill's Genetics, and she still makes Jilly Bean. So I think they're F2s. So that's not lost. You can always acquire that again, get that again.
I'll see if I can establish contact again and reach out.
Yeah, I mean she's still in Oregon, so
okay.
I mean,
yeah,
you shouldn't have any problem finding her. She's pretty easy to find.
Good. That shouldn't have too much of a problem. I usually can keep an ear close to the ground, so to say.
Yeah, I mean, she got a little mad at me because like I posted a picture with the 3 of us. It was like me, her, and Subcool, and it was like I don't know, maybe a year or 2 ago, and I don't know if it's PTSD or whatever, but she got really angry at me for posting that. How dare you post this evil man? Blah. I'm like, okay, whatever.
I didn't hear nothing about that.
Yeah, I'm like, whatever. I'm not trying to be in the drama. I just posted it.
Yeah, exactly. Just trying to remember, so to say. Show some remembrance.
Yeah.
I completely get it.
Yeah, it's whatever, And I met some really cool people through him, like Raymond. People know as Odie Diesel, like one of the coolest dudes you'll ever meet.
Absolutely.
That guy made the Oregon Diesel, the Doctor Who. Those are Quantum Kush. Those are awesome strains.
Yeah,
Mickey Kush.
Yeah.
Some people may or may not know like Dockside, but he was more like in the background, I guess. And then you had Sonny Chiba, did some early stuff with him. There was fuck, what's his name? Pat from Heroes of the Farm. I don't know if you ever met him.
I did. Yep.
Yeah.
I met him.
Yeah, those were all those guys did good stuff, and still, I think there's a lot of them are still doing good stuff,
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's for sure. No, there's the people that stuck around the longest seem to have been the ones that were most involved or did it for the right reasons. The guys that were doing it for research purposes or for personal hobby, as a passion, not just for the dollar. Granted,
yeah,
the dollar guys come and go as they see fit. That's fair enough.
Yeah, at some point, Joel from North Star became in there, and because Joel made probably, I want to easily say 50% of all the TGA library. He bred for Subcool, and Joel is one of my favorite breeders to this day. It's like sometimes like I do breeding too, but like it's like we still always have our heroes, and like I look up to Joel. I think North Star does fucking fantastic work.
Yeah.
and he's still around, still doing cool stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's running a seed bank now. I guess that's his wife's. It's geneticssupply.com. Lots of
Okay.
good stuff in there. He's got a lot of old subschools, old stuff. If people are looking for any of the old subschool stuff,
Yeah.
it's listed under like the dude. Like he's got the different males. Like the dude was the main. That's just basically a male space queen that he gave it a name to. But yeah, not to make it all about subcool, but yeah, subcool is definitely legendary. It's your show. We're talking about AlphaKronic genetics here tonight.
Yeah, and that's the point. Like, I wouldn't be where I'm at without Subby. Like he opened a lot of doors for me, and I'm trying to give credit where credit's due. You know what I mean? Like I fully give him, for all that's good and bad in the world, I have to give credit where credit is due. And there were people out there that opened the door for me, and people like Ebud and JJ and Kim Dog and fucking Subby, Bobby Black.
Speaking of Kim Dog,
they all helped me along the way. They all did what I.
Speaking of the Kim Dog, where did you get your Kim D at?
There was a fellow that was moving up here from Florida. I'm not big on dropping specific names, but there was a fellow that was moving up here from Florida, and again, he was a breed mayor, and he sent me cuts, and I held them up here. While my ex and I were in culinary school, we had a 2-bedroom apartment, little tiny place that was like $500 a month. It was like ridiculous. But we held them until he got here, and he showed up with another eventual breeder and a very prolific grower online named Pig Farmer, and Piggy was moving up here as well at a later date, but the fellow was coming up here, and I held the cuts for him, gave them to him, and he asked me if I wanted anything, and said I would take this, this, and this. I took probably double of what I kept, and that I think in the end was if there was any issues with that relationship, it was that issue. Was that I only kept I kept a certain amount of cuts, but then I got rid of them, half of them, because I only wanted to keep a certain amount. And when that person needed more cuts for whatever purposes, they lost the others. I supplied what I could, and did not have everything that they wanted, which created a little bit of static.
Some tension. Yeah.
I'm being very judicious, trying to be as diplomatic as possible.
Yeah.
But water under the bridge. Everybody moves on. Everybody grows up. So, it is what it is. Things happen. You lose cuts, and you don't have everything to give back to somebody, and that's the way it works. And so, sure, it might make bad blood, but that's the way it works. Nothing you can do about it.
So did you have any friendship relationship with Exotic Mike? Because I noticed you have some Kimbo Kush in your line.
I've hung out with Exotic quite a few. Well, I can't say quite a few times. A few times at different shows, different events. At one of our very first booths up at the Seattle Hemp Fest, he was one of the first people that came up to me and shook my hand and said, "Thank you, dude." He's like, "You're somebody."
Thinking back now, that's where I met you.
Yeah, was one of the okay, yeah.
It was at Hemp Fest.
Okay.
I think I have like a black and white photocopy of one of your brochures.
That probably sounds right. I think we ran out. We had to get some more printed that weekend for the next day or something. We had black and white stuff for one of the shows. But yeah, no, Kimbo came up and, was like, "Thanks, dude." He's like, I grew your stuff back in the day when I was, going, and, just wanted to say thank you. And it's nice to meet you. And, I shook his hand and said thanks. And, that was that. We've always been friendly. And, I've hung out with him outside of that to a certain degree. We hung out in Tacoma, I think, at the Cannabis Cup and a couple of other places. But, yeah, we're good. I've used the Kimbo, asked permission. At one point in time in the breeding process, I wanted to do a collaboration series, basically, and that was basically working, getting a hold of other breeders that I had a connection with, and saying, hey, let's do something together. Let's not just make it about you or I or us, or let's do something as a community and try to share whatever, trading seeds, and then being able to use those seeds in a more professional sense. And so when I talked to Kimbo, I said, hey, I want to try, I talked to Exotic. I said, I want to use this Kimbo. And he's like, yeah, tear it up. So tried to make something fun out of it. I tried to give, I never took credit for the Kimbo. Obviously, I was definitely saying that, that's where it came from.
Was it Snow Dog was the male that you used in that one?
Yeah.
Did you get blackberry notes, or what'd you get out of that? What was
There was some blackberry notes, kind of a bakery profile a little bit, if I remember right. It was kind of bready, if I remember correctly. I did one test batch on that, but we had a test grow. Kimbo, we had one in Michigan, and I want to say we had one in North Texas, on the main test grows, if I remember correctly. But yeah, that was a nice yielder. That was the nice thing. It was a good yielder. The thing we had, the Kimbo, the hybrid with the Kimbo, we had a hybrid with a banner number 5. That was really nice at that point in time for the crop.
You get strawberry out of it, out of the banner?
Yeah. It was the strawberry banner, the one you'd brush up against and make it smell strawberries in the room.
Yeah. That banner was fucking awesome. I remember that going around Oregon for a while.
Yep. That was good stuff. So, I like I said, I was doing stuff for breeders. I did, every once in a while I would make a strain. I would consider it, I called it a cropper strain, and something for the guys that were looking for yield, and mold and mite resistance. Just something that was, once a year, put something out that would hopefully help, guys. If you're growing for yourself and you're growing for flavor and potency, you tend to get a little bit lower yield because you're not pushing things as hard. So if you can run 1 or 2 plants a year and yield well and make some loot out of it, pays for part of your good smoke. That's the way I see it. It's kind of that yin yang thing,
Can you talk about Snosberry?
So yeah, Snosberry was a hybrid that we did. That was we made it in part of what they call the Wonka series. In fact, I'll see if I can bring up a picture.
Here, let me put that back on. Actually, I got to go to this view at the stage. There we go. Snosberry.
So yeah, one of the cuts that was running around Oregon that everybody was raving about in that year was called Purple Urkel. Very kind of grape flavor, bubblegummy in a little bit of a sense if you grew it in an organic way. Not a huge yielder, smaller yielder, I'll give it that. And so I wanted to see if I could add the sweetness from my Snow Dog directly to the Urkel and add a little bit of yield. Just a little bit. And we grew it out, and it had a very candy flavor, kind of almost like a grape skittle. Very like kind of like somewhere between like a grape skittle and a grape bubblegum, kind of.
That sounds fantastic. Yeah.
And so I decided to make a line called the Wonka line, in honor of, or an ode to some of my childhood things, called the Snosberry, because the Snosberries do taste like Snosberries.
Yeah. See, that would be a good one to bring back. Snosberry. What about the Gobstopper?
Well, the Gobstopper is. I'll picture for you on that one too. Let me see if I can grab that. There you go. So Gobstopper, again,
Purple cross.
It is. Yeah, exactly. That Urkel had such a nice flavor. I wanted to continue running with it. So I decided to take it and hit it with my Sin City Kush male and try to create a more indica flavor or indica feel out of it, if that makes sense. Add some bushiness, stop the stretch, because the Snow Dog did add quite a bit of stretch to that Urkel in the Snozzberry. So on this one, I decided I was going to try to do something a little different. Add some compactness, try to tighten up the nugs a little bit, see what I could do with some coloration, see what I could do with pigments, and trying to get
that right there looks
flavors and colors out of it. See what was available, so to say.
Yeah, you got purple, green, orange hairs. I mean,
yeah. I mean, granted, that is under a light, so don't get me wrong. That is
that a Blurple light? Was that a Blurple LED, or was that under? What was that under?
No, it was under a T5, but there definitely was like almost like kind of like a reflection off of a piece of like mylar that was at the end of that rack.
Oh, I see.
A little bit of like a weird tone to it. And I thought when I lined up that camera, because I was using a macro lens, at that angle, like it just hit that with that angle. I was like, that's a fucking dank picture. You know what I mean? It just hit it. When you have it at full format, you can zoom in and get like trichome heads real clear on it. It's a high res photo for sure.
Yeah. And then you had let's see.
And just to let you know, I'm probably gonna have to bail out in about 5 minutes.
Down there soon.
Yeah, I gotta go grab my kiddo, but I would definitely love to come back anytime. So
yeah, we could do a part 2 for sure. What do you want to go, like another 10-15 minutes, or do you need to go before that?
I probably got about another 5 or 10 maybe on me. Yeah.
Okay. Do 5 to 10 minutes. So what would you say was your main what's your favorite strain of everything that you created?
Well, here's the one that kind of put me on the board. This is the one that made me known, at least on Breed Bay and in the breeding community. It was the Jackpot Royale.
That looks really pretty.
I appreciate that. Again, it was using that Snow Dog or that Space Queen male. I apologize.
So was that the exact male that Subcool had?
No. I found my own male. He gave me 2 packs of the original Space Queen F2 seeds, and I popped them in for male selection. And crossed it with the Las Vegas Purple Kush, and made what I thought was a good plant. At least the phenos that I was testing came out very pretty, very flavorful. It's probably the hybrid that we have requested most to have come back. I'll be honest.
Yeah, the Jackpot Royale. Yeah. Did you make any other Space Queen crosses?
I did. I'll tell you what. I will have to go back and look at a lot of what I had. Let me take a look. Oh, you know what? Here we go. This is a good opportunity right here. This is a poster. Oh crap, went the wrong direction. A poster we made for one of those trade shows. I think it was the Cannabis Cup. We were giving out full-size posters, and this is the Space Queen series. So this is Belka, Jackpot Royale, Super Bomb, Pelagio, which was a cheese crossed, White Diamonds, and Leica. And Belka.
What's a Super Bomb?
That was Space Queen. Basically, that was the tiny bomb from Subcool crossed with my Space Queen male.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
And that was, I'll be honest, when I made that, here, let me see if I can zoom in for you guys a little bit. There you go. So when I made that, I'll be honest, it kind of irked him. It irked him in a sense that he decided to go out and make, and I forget what he called his tiny bomb cross, but he made something and it came out after I sold out of these ones. So for competition, nothing, no bad blood again, just friendly competition.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But the Belka and Laika were both named after the Russian cosmonaut dogs, the first dogs that ever went to space. So,
Belka 707 headband. Oh, you had the original headband.
yep, and it's still out there. And then we had
that headband was like you could spot that from a million miles away. If you just see it in a room, you could just tell, like those big white fluffy bucking colas.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. But let me see here.
Like it.
So yeah, that's what I would call the.
I think you should work. I think, man, yeah, I know there's a lot of cool new stuff out there, but I definitely think you should work. Try to work your own lines again. You bring some of those things back. At least as like maybe make a legacy series or something. Like.
Yeah, I can see that coming out. Some old school stuff for the heads, like OG old school things. And yeah, I'm down. Don't get me wrong. It's just gonna take a little bit of time.
Did you ever transition to LED, or did you did you stop with HPS? Did you try 315 like CMHs or?
Yeah, no, when I finished, I was running I was testing for a brand, doing LED 4x4 units that were fully controllable, computer controlled and stuff like that. And I still have it. In fact, I did get rid of my HPS ballasts and hoods and stuff just because of the inefficiencies of them. I am running, when I do get back going, I'll be on LEDs. Yeah, they just the efficiency and the amperage draws and that sort of thing make it palatable.
Well, at this point, like LED is pretty much taken over the game. I mean, even the commercial facilities are LED these days. The efficacy is there now, is where, in 2013, 2014, it was a different ball game.
Yeah.
However, I will say that people that live in cold climates, like say Alaska, maybe northern Michigan, like in the wintertime, the high pressure sodium and the metal halide also work as heat. They're using it also as heat. So they want the heat. But like down here in Southern California, we don't want that heat. And so that costs us a lot more money to extract that heat and then to cool that room. So for us, the LEDs are key down here.
That's absolutely true. No, that's for sure. In the wintertime up here, even, we require heat additives if you're running cool rooms. So
got a comment from chat. It's talking about Spaceball made tremendous hash. This dude's version of Super Bomb would be fun to run. That's beams that you can't find. Yeah, it's for sure. Hash was a sub was all about hash. He always had his little hash pipe, and he had that lung condition, so he was always smoking hash, which is sort of strange to think about with a lung condition because hash smoke is thicker by a lot. So you would think that would have affected him more, but maybe he just dealt with it, and that way he didn't have to take as many hits. He got higher off of one puff,
higher efficiency.
Yeah. So take a little choking and trying to regain your breath, but you're only doing it once versus 10 hits of a regular something. But yeah, man. Yeah, thanks for coming by. We definitely should do a part 2, get a little more in depth with different stuff, and maybe we can do it in like a week or 2.
Be good. I'm down.
I know you got kind of a busy schedule going right now, and not to mention why or anything, but you got life going on, and
it's true.
And it's good. I'm gonna, to people that don't on chat, like I'm gonna try to start having more regular shows. I used to have a show. I used to do it every Saturday night. And then sometimes I'd have a Sunday show. I'm gonna try to get back on at least, once a week. It's been a while since I kind of took a hiatus also, about 6 months now. But yeah, I'll have you back, and I'll have some other guests back. Individual we talked to off camera about.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to have him, which should be a real.
That'll be a barn burner for you, buddy. That's gonna be a real
different type of show.
Episode for you, buddy.
Yeah. No. With the other guy I'm talking about, I've held, that should be a real interesting adventure. But it's good to have everybody's stories, because we're all part of the history at this point. We're in the pioneer phase of recreational cannabis, and and all of us that's been doing this for 20 years now, 15 years at this point. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're all still, we're the pioneers. In 100 years from now, you'll look back and hopefully one of us will be talked about. I mean, I don't know if I'll ever be at that level, but Subcool will definitely be talked about.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I will be either. I mean, if I make a mark, cool. I just wanted to try to improve cannabis at some point in time in its genome. That was my goal. Like, try to help out, make it better.
Yeah, definitely. The final part, we'll have to get a little bit more in details on that next show.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit more about different terpenes and cannabinoids and different research that we've both done.
I'll put something together. I'll put a little thing together. It talks about, different, how the combinations of different, thiols will create different effects. And, even like when I'll be honest, when I was in first grade, I had scratch and sniff stickers, and like gasoline and oil were my two favorites. Like I was on that shit like from the get-go.
Oh shit.
Like the 80s were wild. We had gasoline, scratch and sniffs. Like it was different. It was a different time.
You're like, yeah. Do you got a scratch and sniff that smells like permanent marker? Come on.
Oh, this must smell like whiteout.
Yeah. You remember though when we were in elementary school and they had those markers that smelled like different things, like grape and apple.
Yeah, it was Mr. Bubbles or something fucking crazy name. I remember it. Mr. Marker.
I forget what it was called, but they had like a root beer one. They had a root beer one, a licorice one, like the grape one. Like, I love those fucking things,
Oh yeah, man.
And then I don't know. I actually like the smell of WD-40 as well, though.
Oh yeah, definitely. And that and carb cleaner.
Carb cleaner, yeah.
for those who work on it.
Gasoline. Yeah, I'm just one of those weirdos. I like that shit.
Yeah, I agree.
Rubber cement.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate your time.
All right. We'll talk again. We'll talk again soon. I'll keep in touch, and we'll schedule you maybe a week or two out from now, and just keep me in the loop. You got my number, so just text me, call me whenever.
Let's do it. We'll talk soon.
All right. Well, folks, thanks for coming by, watching the show tonight, and that's the end of tonight.
All right. Have a great night.